Hello everyone, how is it going? So we as a society value intelligence quotient or IQ a lot, and that's fair because IQ is a measure of one's intelligence and a lot of other things. It basically gauges one's ability to think and to also logically reason things and also memorizing things. So all in all, it's a great indicator of one's intelligence. I completely agree with that. And nowadays, a lot of researchers have also showed up that prove that one can increase one's IQ, and that's all good. Having a great IQ is one of the best things ever. I completely agree with it. But the truth of the matter is that only having a high IQ or only focusing on IQ is not enough. In fact, there are other pillars or other aspects or other quotients that we should be focusing on. Four to be exact, apart from IQ. These are emotional quotient, adversity quotient, spiritual quotient, and creativity quotient. So in this video, we're going to be looking at these four pillars apart from intelligence quotient. The thing is, having just a high IQ is not enough, because that necessarily does not mean a person will succeed. Because if the person is lacking on these other four pillars, then it's hard. Only using intelligence to succeed is not possible. So it's always good to have a balance of all these five quotients or aspects, and we as a society should equally focus on each and every aspect. So let's begin the video on that note. Okay, so firstly, what is emotional quotient? Emotional quotient is how we manage our emotions to take the right decisions, to take the right important decisions in our daily lives. And also it also means how we manage our stress, the stress that we face in our daily lives. Emotional quotient is really important because if a person is, say, very intelligent and has a great IQ, but if that person is not able to manage his or her stress well, and if he or she is not able to take good decisions because of not being able to manage emotions properly, then that's like a nail on the coffin. So we don't want to have such a situation. So it is important for us to focus on EQ, that is emotional quotient, as well, along with IQ. Talking about EQ, how could we go about building our EQ, or how could we go about increasing our EQ? Well, to talk about a few ways, I'll say first of all, being mindful in everyday life can really help us build our EQ. Apart from that, just observing our emotions and practicing managing emotions well, or doing things practically, can really help us build our EQ. So that was all about EQ or emotional quotient. Now let's talk about AQ or adversity quotient. What's adversity quotient? Well, adversity quotient is how we endure tough or challenging or adverse situations in our life without breaking down or without letting those situations affect our mood or our mental health in the long term. It is all about overcoming challenges by taking the right decisions and giving things a step-by-step approach to come out of any adverse situation, for that matter. Again, AQ is really important because if a person is really intelligent, has a high IQ, and say even has a good EQ, but if some adverse situation strikes his or her life, if he or she is not able to endure that and breaks down completely, then that's really unfortunate. So again, we don't want to have such a situation in our lives. So focusing on AQ is very important as well. Again, how do we go about building AQ? How can we increase our AQ or our adversity quotient? Well, to do that, we could mentally toughen ourselves by doing things that are a bit uncomfortable for us. This way, we are training ourselves to be okay with uncomfortable or unforeseen situations, or situations that we are not used to before. Other than that, again, we have to try practicing AQ consciously. We have to try practicing things that will make us mentally tougher, and we should also try practicing things that could potentially help us endure adverse situations. So that basically concludes AQ or adversity quotient. The third pillar or the third aspect is SQ, spiritual quotient. Contrary to what the name suggests, SQ or spiritual quotient does not relate to any religion at all. SQ simply means your peacefulness, or how peaceful you are, how fulfilled you are, and how content you are. Basically means how much of a connection you have with your inner self, how much is your soul satisfied with your life. That basically is spiritual quotient or SQ. So again, comparing it with other factors, if a person has a really high IQ and if he or she is doing something that he or she doesn't feel fulfillment for, or if someone is not peaceful, or if someone is not happy in their life, then what's the point, right? So SQ or spiritual quotient is very, very important. It is indispensable in a sense. Again, how could we go about building our SQ? How could we go about increasing our SQ? For that, we could adopt practices like meditation or praying to any higher order or higher power that we believe in. Other than that, we could also live closer to the nature and learn a lot of things from nature itself. These are little things we could do to improve our SQ. The simplest thing we could do is start practicing SQ intentionally, or start doing things that can build the connection between ourselves and our inner soul or true selves. So anything that builds that connection between us and our true selves is spiritual and increases our spiritual quotient. Lastly, CQ or creativity quotient. What is CQ? Well, as the name suggests, it's really simple. CQ or creativity quotient is your ability to think outside the box and solve real life practical problems using different approaches. CQ again is really important, because if we compare it with, say, IQ, if a person has a really good IQ and not a good CQ, then that person would not be able to use his or her intelligence to the max. A lack of a good CQ in one's life could act as a potential bottleneck for a person to, use his or her intelligence to solve problems. CQ is really important for one's life to be able to solve problems that could be bothering us in our lives. Again, how could we go about building this CQ or creativity quotient? For that, we could read and learn lots of new things. Other than that, we could practice thinking creatively, and we could practice problem solving in real life by putting us in situations that require us to solve problems. We could basically start forcing us a little bit to think creatively. That should work. So that basically concludes the 4 things or pillars apart from IQ, that is intelligent quotient, that we should be focusing on. We should be giving equal importance to these 5 things, because these really matter. A good balance of these 5 things can create a great individual who can possibly make the world a better place and also elevate his or her life. Now, you might have noticed in all these pillars, one thing was common when it comes to going about building each of these things, and that is to practice everything consciously or intentionally. Say, for example, for EQ, we have to start practicing managing our emotions well. For AQ, we have to start practicing enduring adverse situations. For CQ, we have to practice creative thinking, and for SQ, we have to practice being spiritual and being in connection with our spirits. Intentional practice is the way to go when it comes to building these aspects. So that was pretty much it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this one, and if you did find some value out of this, please don't forget to like this video. Please don't forget to share this with your friends so that they too get the value out of this video. And lastly, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because a lot of people who watch the videos don't really subscribe to the channel. My analytics show that, so it would be really helpful if you could subscribe to the channel and then share this video with all your friends. That's it for this video. I'll see you soon in another one. Until then, take care, and lastly, thank you so much for all the support that you show.